Hi budding engineers, welcome to Structural Engineering Lectures and welcome to a new playlist on the design of steel structures conforming to IS 800 2007 demonstrated design. In today's class we shall see the design of splice faces due to shear, bending and axial forces, 3 problems. We will also see a problem on finding out the effective length of a column. Whereas in the previous class we have seen the design of the laced column system in single lacing system wherein the sections were connected back to back, and also in the previous class we have seen another problem on design of battened column wherein we have designed the battening system for the built up column, right? I hope you are enjoying the discussions on our YouTube channel, right? If you are really enjoying the discussion, don't forget to click like, share, subscribe and comment and turn on notification to our YouTube channel. Now before we go to the actual discussion, student, down let us see the brief profile of mine. I, Dr. D. Rupesh Kumar, has obtained my BTech Civil Engineering from Nagarjuna University in 1994, MTech Structural Engineering from JNTU Hyderabad in 2000, and PhD in Structural Engineering from JNTU Hyderabad in 2009. Presently, I am working as Professor of Department of Civil Engineering, University College of Engineering, Osman University, Hyderabad, Telangana State. I have an experience of 27 years, of which 7 years is in industry and 20 years is in teaching and research at graduate, postgraduate levels. My research areas include reinforced cement concrete designs, steel structural design, structural analysis, fault element analysis, earthquake engineering, bridge engineering, structural optimization. I have published 45 research papers in international as well as national journals and conferences, and organized 3 international and national conferences, 11 national conferences, workshops, attended 43 workshops, visited 2 countries, delivered 13 guest lectures, edited 3 books, supervising 14 PhD scholars and supervised 30 ME theses. I am actively involved in various consultancy works that are offered by the department and completed over 750 design proof checks and 150 plus designs of reinforced concrete designs, steel, composite, low-rise, high-rise, multi-story buildings and road and rail bridges. Right. Now, once we see this brief profile, now let us move quickly to the top. The discussions what we'll be discussing in today's class. Right. Before we go to the actual discussion, now let me show. Right. What we'll be discussing 2 problems. Right. One problem is like this, wherein for a multi-story building, for a multi-story steel framed building, right, we'll find out the effective length of the columns, right, for that of the ground floor and that of the first floor, so on and so forth. Right. This is one problem, student. Right. This is how the schematic what I am showing, right, and this is how the problem. This is a problem of calculation of effective length of a multi-story braced framed building as per this class Annex D1 of page number 122. The other day we have discussed this elaborately, student. Let me go to this Annex 122 page. Let me go to quickly 122. Yes, and there in page number 122, student. Right. This is Annex D, right, which is used for determination of the effective lengths of the columns. Right, effective length of the columns in frames. Right, non-sway framed braced frames, right, where K is given by this value, right, and also for sway frame movement resisting frames, right, K is given by this equation, right. Therefore, I am just recalling this using these formulae. I need to calculate what is the effective length of a multi-story building. Now let us see the problem definition. Right, this is how a ground floor plan of a 6-story building is as shown in the figure. Determine the effective lengths of the column marked in plan as C1 in Z as well as Y directions respectively. Right, assuming the frame to be a braced, right, that is non-sway. However, the story height is 3.5 meter and the total story design load including the self-weight of the slabs, live loads, etc. may be taken as 30 kilonewton per meter square on the plan area for the purpose of the estimation of the load on the column, axial load on the column for calculation of the compression load. And also assume Fe410 grade steel and all the beam column joints are fixed, right, and the ground floor story columns are fixed at the base. Right, this is how the the problem is given, student. Right, and let me see the plan, it is as shown in the figure, right? That figure is given like this, right? That is a six-story multi-storied building, right? Like this, six-story multi-storied building like this, right? Now just I'm showing three-story multi-storied building, right? Like this, wherein, right, which is connected by means of the beams in the x z direction as well as the beams in the y direction, both, right? Therefore I want to find out the effective length of this ground story building as well as that of the first story building, right? Ground story as well as the first story building, right? Therefore this is how the problem is now shown. Now the same, if I see in plan, is looking like this, that is looking like this, right? Therefore it is having say the columns spaced in x direction at every 2.5 meters. At every 2.5 meters there are 6 spacings, means there are 7 columns, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 columns in x direction or z direction, in y direction, in y direction, as well as in the z direction. In the z direction means vertical direction, there are 3 bays, right? This is what called the first bay, second bay and third bay, which are spaced at every 6 meter. This is 6 meter, right? Therefore there are 4 columns. There are 4 columns in z direction. In z direction there are 4 columns, whereas in y direction, weak axis, there are 7 columns, right? Therefore that is how the center to center dimension along the major axis is 18 meter, whereas along the minor axis, y axis, is 15 meters, because 6 multiplied by 2.5 is 15 meters. Therefore the plan size of this is 18 meter by 15 meter, right? Now that is how the plan. However, what are these sections, right? Now what is given is that these 6 meter continuous, three span continuous beam is given with ISWB 600 at the rate of 1425.43 Newton per meter, right? And if I go to this SP61 table 1 page number 4, let me go to this table 4 page number, right? Let me go to this page number 4, student. Just wait for a moment, right? Yes, I'm there in table page number 4, wherein this is ISWB 600, 1423, right? WB 600, right? Yes, ISWB 600, this one, right? ISWB 600 145.1 kg per meter. Therefore I'm just noting down the relevant properties, right? I have to have the moment of inertia about the major axis as 115,626.6 centimeter to the power 4, and about the minor axis as 5298.3, right? Moment of inertia about that minor axis, right? Therefore I'm just noting down those relevant properties also, right? Like that, what is also given is that this 6 span continuous beam with each of 2.5 meter continuous continuity of this span is given as a section as ISLB 325 at a rate of 462.3 Newton per meter. Therefore if I go to this table 1 page number 2, I'm just noting down as if in the previous case, the moment of inertia about the major axis as 9874.6 10 to the power 4 mm to the power 4. Similarly, the section for this column is given as ISHB, right? Column section is ISHB 400 at a rate of 759.2 Newton per meter. Therefore from this table 1 of page number 4, the same page number, I am just noting down the moment of inertia about the strong axis as 2808.3 2808.3 10.5 10 power 4, 28,083.5 10 power 4, and the moment of inertia about weak axis y axis is equal to 27 128.3 10 to the power 4 mm to the power 4, right? These are the in terms of mm to the power 4, right? Therefore I just noted down from SP61 1964, which is called the Structural Engineering Handbook 1. Structural Engineering Handbook 1. Therefore once I note down the relevant property student, there is a given data. Hence now what I'll do is the column, right? This is that column C. For this column, what is given is that you find out the effective length, right? Now let me see this, right? Like this, right? This is how that column C, right, which is fixed at the base, right? Like this, which is fixed at the base, and this column C1 is right. I am just showing here a cut section, right? Therefore which is fixed at the base, whereas it is continuing in first floor. It is continuing in the first floor, as well as the beams are there on left as well as right. To the left as well as right, the beams are there. Therefore I am just taking out a cut section of this, what I am highlighting, right, and I am drawing that to some exaggerated view, right? Therefore that is how the column I want to find out the effective length of this column, which is fixed at the base, that of the ground story, and which is continuous at the first story, right? Then however, if I see the last story, right, that is how this column, which is notated here as Cn, then you please see that this column is not continuous at the top, right? However, there are the beams which are there to the left as well as the right, like this, right? That is how the change in continuity of this column. However, now I will find out what is the effective length of this column C1 in the ground story as well as that of the first story also in the next bit, right? Now once you understood this, the unsupported length is given in the problem as 3.5 meter, student, right? 3.5 meter. However, they are now obstructed because they are now connected in Z direction by ISWB 600. This much of 600 mm depth is there, right? Therefore, along the major axis LZ, unsupported length like this, right, is equal to 3500 minus 600. 35, actually this is 3500, student, right? Here to here is 3500 minus this 600. Therefore this is how the unsupported length will now work out, 2900 mm, right? Like that, right? Similarly, along the minor axis we can see that ISLB 325 is provided, right? Therefore the unsupported length along the minor axis is equal to 3500 minus 325. Therefore it works out a value, say a value 3175 mm. These are the unsupported length, right, from bottom of this beam to the top of that beam, right, along major and minor axis respectively, right? Now also here I need to calculate how much of load is coming onto this column, right, because this is my column, right? Therefore now I can see that from this the width from which the load is coming from y direction is 2.5 by 2. Therefore this is 2.5, and also the length from z direction is 6 meter by 2. Therefore this is 6 meter. Therefore this strip what I am highlighting here itself is 6 meter by 2.5 meter. Therefore that is how 2.5 by 6 meter is the planned area which is contributing the load onto this column C1. Therefore, however, in the problem it's already given that intensity of the load is 30 kilonewton per meter square. Therefore the load on the column in the figure what I have shown is 30 multiplied by this 2.5 multiplied by 6, it works out say 450 kilonewton. However, if I go to this codal specification, just now I have shown that codal specification, right, like this. Just wait for a moment, right? Therefore here if I go to this next page, now I do have, right, what are the correction factors for effective length for flexural stiffness, right? However, here my far end is fixed, means the bottom end is fixed, right? Whereas this end is continuous, right? Far end is fixed, right? Far bottom end is fixed. Therefore, for which is it a braced frame? Yes, it is a braced frame. Therefore, the correction factor C is equal to 2 multiplied by 1 minus 0.4 n bar, where n bar is equal to P divided by P PE, where PE is the elastic buckling load and P is the applied load. Just now we have obtained applied load workload 450 kilonewton. Therefore, now what is the elastic buckling load? Means pi square, that is a Euler's buckling load or Euler's crippling load, right? Therefore, that now works out say pi square E by L square, right? Therefore, pi square E, the Young's modulus of the steel by default is 2 × 10⁵, and the moment of inertia of this column about the major axis is equal to 28,083.5 × 10⁴ divided by the unsupported length is 3500 mm square, that divided by 10⁵. It works out say 45,252 kilonewton, student, right? Therefore at that much of load only this column will buckle about the major axis, right? About the major axis, right? Very large value, right? Therefore, now I'll find out this ratio of these loads as say n prime is equal to P is equal to 450 divided by 45,252. It is approximately 0.01 percentage. Therefore, the correction factor for this column using this formula 2 multiplied by 1 minus 0.4 multiplied by 0.01, it works out around 1.992. Therefore, once I note down that I already know, because this is a braced frame, student, therefore I'll go back to the previous formula. I'll just note down this formula where K is equal to 1 plus 0.145 beta 1 plus beta 2 minus 0.265 beta 1 beta 2 divided by 2 minus 0.364 beta 1 plus beta 2 minus 0.247 beta 1 beta 2 for non-sway frame or braced frame, right? Where beta 1 beta 2 are given by beta is equal to summation of K divided by summation of Kc Kc plus summation of Kb, right? Therefore, now I do have where C for the Kc is the effective flexural stiffness of the column and Kb is the effective flexural stiffness of the beam, and K for the columns is this correction factor multiplied by I by L. For beams, this correction factor will not be there, right? Just make a note of this, student, right? Therefore, substituting these, now I do have, right? I need to find out what are beta 1 and beta 2s, right? Therefore, now where these formulae we have just now noted down, and the summation of the now let us see this for this ground story column. Now I'm calculating that. Therefore, in the major direction, Z direction, right? In the major direction, right? Or in the vertical direction, right? In plan, it is vertical direction, right? Actually, it is in plan in vertical direction, right? Hence, for that, now I do have the summation of all these stiffnesses of the columns. There are the two columns are there, because now you please see that right at this joint, this column is further continuing in the top. Therefore, there are the two columns, right? Two columns are there at this joint, right? That multiplied by, for column, this correction factor will come into picture, 1.992. Just now we have calculated this, right? 1.992. That multiplied by the moment of inertia about the strong axis is equal to 28,083.5 into 10⁴ divided by unsupported length is equal to 3500. It is a summation of all these stiffnesses of these columns, right? For two columns, because 1 plus 1, this is continuing, right? And now similarly, this value will now work out a result, say 319.67 10⁴ mm cube, student, right? Similarly, there are the two beams, right? One on the left as well as on the right. Therefore, two beams are there, therefore summation of KBs is equal to, without correction factor, please make a note student, right, no correction factor, right, therefore two such beams whose moment of inertia about the strong axis is equal to 11,500 this 11 5626.6 10 to the power 4 divided by that length of that beam in the z direction is 6 meters. Please make a note, is 6 meters, right? Let us see in this plan, right? This is how, this is 6 meter. Please make a note, right? Therefore, if I divide with that, now I'll get there are two such beams, right? Therefore, it works out this result as 285.42 10 to the power 3 mm cube. Therefore, now at joint 1, I do have this beta 1. Beta 1 is equal to, given by beta summation of beta 1 is summation of all the stiffness of the column divided by summation of the stiffnesses of the columns as well as that of the beams. Therefore, now I do have, right, 10 to the power 3, 10 to the power 3 gets cancelled in the numerator, that of the pure columns only. However, in the denominator, columns as well as beams, right? 319 approximately 320 plus 385 in the denominator. Therefore, 320 divided by this denominator is approximately 0.4533 is the beta 1 value. However, if I go to this figure, at the far end is fixed, right? This far end is fixed. Therefore, because this there are no beams and even the column is not continuing beyond that, therefore from that now I can say beta 2 far end being fixed and it is not continuing there, it is discontinuous there onwards, therefore beta 2 is equal to 0. Therefore, substituting these into the above formula, this formula, just now we have noted this formula, student, right? K is equal to 1 plus 0.145 beta 1 beta 2 minus 0.265 beta 1 beta 2 divided by that 2 minus 0.364 beta 1 beta 2 minus 247 beta 1 beta 2. Now I do have, because beta 2 itself is 0, that last value will not come into picture, therefore that ratio will work out upon substitution of beta 1 into this formula. This K value will work out 0.581. Therefore, the effective length in the major direction, z direction, is equal to this effective length factor 0.581 multiplied by 2900 unsupported length. This we already calculated. Please see, unsupported length, right? LZ. Therefore, it works out 1682 mm, right? Similarly, I want to find out the effective length in the minor direction. Therefore, it now works out, say, in a similar fashion, right? For column, the moment of inertia about the y direction, weak axis, is equal to 128.3 10 to the power 4. Therefore, now I will calculate what is summation of all these sigma c. Therefore, it is equal to 2. Two such columns are there with even in the y direction also 2 columns are there, student. Please see, right? And with the correction factor of 1.992 with 2728 into 10 to the power 4 divided by unsupported length 3500. That works out, say, 31.05 10 to the power 3 mm cube. Very small value compared to that of the previous one, almost 10% only, right? And also in the weak axis also there are the two beams which are there on either side. Those beams are ISLB 325. Therefore, whose moments of inertia about the strong axis is equal to 9874.6 10 to the power 4. Therefore, two such beams are there. Therefore, summation of all stiffnesses of all such beams is equal to 2 multiplied by 9874.6 10 to the power 4 divided by that length of each of that beam is equal to 2500 mm in the horizontal direction. That works out, say, 78.99 10 to the power 3 mm cube. Therefore, what is beta 1? Upon substitution, it works out as summation of stiffnesses of all the columns divided by stiffnesses of all the columns plus beams. Therefore, in the numerator, approximately 31, in the denominator 31 plus 79 approximately, right? Therefore, that works out, say, 0.282. Even in the y direction also the column is fixed and discontinuous beyond that. Therefore beta 2 is equal to 0. Substituting these new inputs into the above formula, it works out, say, k effective length factor as 0.548. Therefore the effective length in the weak axis, about the weak axis or y axis, is equal to that factor 0.548 multiplied by unsupported length Ly is equal to 3175. Please make a note, 3175. Therefore it works out approximately 39.9 mm in the y direction also. That is how the effective length will be calculated, student, right? I hope you understood this first bit. If you understood this first bit, now let me do another second calculation, right? Determine the effective length factor of the column for the above problem, right? In the second story for the same column, right? This was that column C1. If I go to that second story, right, what is that effective length factor? Obviously it will be a different value because previously the bottom was discontinuous, right? However, for this C2, you please see that the bottom is also continuous, even the top is also continuous. There is a change in this stiffness. Therefore beta 1 will come into picture. Previously beta 2 will come into picture. Previously beta 2 was 0. Therefore now I'll calculate it a quicker pace. Therefore in the z direction, beta 1 is already calculated. Please see that that was 0.4533, student, 0.4533. However, because even at the far end, means at the bottom end, this being continuous in the downward direction, hence beta 2 will also work out the same numeric value, 0.4533 only, 0.4533 only, because here even at the bottom also the beam is the column is continuous. Therefore even at this joint, two columns are there. Even to the left, to the right also the two beams are there. Therefore this joint is a replica, a repetition of this joint itself. Therefore the beta 1, whatever that we have calculated, which was 0.4533, is also numerically equal to the same as that of the, because of the geometry, beta 2, right? Beta 2. Therefore both are 0.4533, 0.4533. Hence substituting into this formula, now I'll get this effective length factor is equal to 1 plus 0.145 multiplied by 2 multiplied by beta 1 plus beta 2 means 2 multiplied by 0.4533 minus 265 multiplied by beta 1 multiplied by beta 2. Both are 0.4533 whole square. That divided by 2 minus 0.364. Beta 1 plus beta 2 means 2 multiplied by 0.4533 minus 0.247 multiplied by beta 1 beta 2 means 0.4533 whole square. It works out, say, a value 0.665. Therefore the effective length about the major axis at ZZ direction is equal to k, 0.665 multiplied by effective length, unsupported length is equal to 2900 mm. Therefore it works out 1929. It is greater than that of the previous value, right? Previous value. Similarly in the y direction, we already calculated in the previous bit, student, please see, it was beta 1. Therefore in a similar fashion now beta 2 is also the same numeric value as I explained here, right? That logic. Therefore both beta 1 beta 2 are 0.282. Hence upon substitution into this formula, a numeric value of beta 1 beta 2 as 0.282. That k works out, say, 0.600. Therefore the effective length in the weak axis, about the weak axis or about y axis, will work out 0.6 multiplied by 3175 is the unsupported length. Therefore 1905 mm, right? That is how the effective length of a multi-storied building is also obtained, right? Now let us see what we'll be discussing in today's class. That is how the column splices are needed. What are column splices actually? These are the joints. A splice means nothing but it is a joint in a member. A splice means a joint in the member. Therefore why these are needed? First of all, if the length required to be erected at the site is large, however from transportation point of view, right, only they will be supplied in particular lengths of, say, not more than 13 to 14 meters. Therefore now I require a splice, a joint, for the column as well as for the other beams also, right? Therefore they are what referred to as the splice student, right? That is what a splice means. Hence, so that I'll have the continuity of the member. Hence, in such a case, the splices may be like this, right? However, the splice may be provided between the members of the same cross section, wherein we may be providing the splices from the external side of the I section, right? Therefore, this is how as shown in the first figure, right? This is the first one, external cover plates of the same cross sections, right? Both are of same cross section. Whereas the second one is the columns are of the same section or same depth. However, in such a case, we'll be providing the splice plates, one from external as well as from the internal side of the flange, right? Whereas the third one is that the columns are of same depth. However, we'll be providing the splices on the flange from the internal side, right? Therefore, there is what called internal cover plates, right? Whereas the fourth one is that the columns are of different depths, right? Like this, right? This is what one depth, another is second depth. Therefore, in which case we need to have the filler plate before I put a splice plate here, right? From outside, external cover plate, or splice plate, right? This is how the different problems, right? These are the different types of the splices, of the column splices. Now what I am showing here is a column of a smaller depth is put over a column of larger depth. Just I already explained it like this, right? In which case I need to put this smaller depth column over a bearing plate, like this. Therefore, like this, right? Then so that it will have the perfect bearing and the loads will be transferred uniformly over the entire cross section of the lower cross section of the column at the lower story or at the bottom, right? And even now we need to have a filler plate, right? So that the gap what is there is filled before we put the splice plate, like this, right? That is how the arrangement for the columns with varying depths, and they will be connected by means of the bolts like this, right? Bolts on the splice plate. Now this is a splice plate on the flange. This is a filler plate, green color is a filler plate, and this is a top column of smaller depth, whereas the bottom one is of bigger depth, right? Now this is how a column of the same depths, wherein the splice plates are provided from external on the flanges of the column, right? As well as we can see another splice plate is also provided on the web part, right? So that that will be taking care of the shear force. Right? And also we can see in the second diagram that a base plate is also provided so as to provide uniform distribution of the load over the bottom column, right? Now we can see this figure wherein just now I already explained that this yellow color is of smaller depth, whereas this violet color is of bigger depth, I section, which is provided by means of the white color filler plates, and this brown color is the splice plate provided on the flanges, and connected by means of, say, 4 plus 4, 8 number of bolts, right? Even here also 8 number of bolts. And also we can see that on the web along the longitudinal axis of this, both the columns shall be matching actually, right? There also we can see a splice plate is provided. This is what called the shear splice plate. This will take care of the shear forces, right? And whereas this splice plate will take care of the axial forces as well as the bending moment, student, right? That external splice plate will take care of external or internal, that will take care of axial forces and bending moments, right? Now this is how another schematic of a splice plate subjected to axial forces and bending moment. Therefore this splice plate, external splice plate on the flange, will take care of, which is connected by means of say 3 plus 3, 6 number of bolts and 6 number of bolts on either side of the joint. This is how we can see the joint. And also we can see on the web there is a splice plate. This is what called the shear splice plate. This is called a flange splice plate, right? Or this is called a web splice plate. This is called a flange splice plate, right? Therefore this is subjected to shear forces and this is subjected to axial and bending moments, right? Now another, the same schematic in another view, right? There is the flange, on the flange an external splice plate, and on the web shear splice plate. This is the joint. This is the joint which is connected by means of 4 plus 4, 8 number of bolts, right? And this is what I am showing, a real photograph of a building, right? Of a multi-story building wherein is the steel structure, wherein we can see that external cover, external splice plates are provided by means of 8 plus 8, 16 number of bolts, right? Now we can see 8 and also here 8. Therefore on either side of a joint, this is what the joint should have, right? And which are flush with one with the other. Two eye sections are flush one with the other and made machine cut and flush, right? Perfect bearing. There is a perfect bearing. And also we can see on the web there is a shear splice plate also. This is how the different problems will be examining, student, right? Now once you understood what we are going to discuss, now let us see a numeric problem at a quicker pace, student, right? This is how a numeric problem. First we'll see the three problems. One is a column of both columns are of same size, which is subjected to pure axial force only. The second problem is that both columns are of different cross sections and they are subjected to axial force alone. And the third problem is that two columns are of the same cross section but they are subjected to 1 axial force, 2 shear force, and 3 the bending moment. These three problems we'll examine in today's class, right? Now let us see the first problem. Student, this is what the first problem, what I'm trying to do is this first problem, wherein this is a problem of design of a splice for columns of same sections, same depth, subjected to axial force only, right? Now wherein before we see this, let us revisit this IS 800 2007 class 7.3.4 page number 46 or class annex F3 page number 130. Let me go to this page number 130, student, so that we'll revisit. We'll see these codal specifications at a quicker pace, right? This is how the annex F, wherein here it deals with the beam splices as well as the column splices. Now I will just move to the column splices where the ends of the compression members are faced for bearing over the whole area. They shall be spliced to hold connected parts aligned. The ends of the compression members faced for bearing shall invariably be machined to ensure perfect contact between machined to ensure the perfect contact between the surfaces of the bearing. Like this is how they should be perfectly machined, right? So that they shall be cut by the machine so that we will have a perfect bearing, right, over the two columns of the same cross section, right? And the second one is where such members are not faced for complete bearing, the splices shall be designed to transmit all the forces to which the member is subjected at the splice location. Means if the cross section of the column is not same, then even you design a base plate as well as that of the splice plate on the flange. That is what the meaning that we will see in the second problem, right? And the third one is wherever possible, splices shall be proportioned to arrange so that the central axis of the splice coincides as nearly as possible with the central axis of the members joint. This is obviously, right? so that the longitudinal axis will not change. If there is any change in longitudinal axis, obviously it will have an eccentricity leading to the bending moments, additional bending moments, right? Therefore, in order to avoid eccentricity, but where eccentricity is present in the joint, however, because in some situations it may be so that in multi-story buildings, right, I may be having a column, right? External columns are generally, right, reduced as I move in the vertical direction. In such a case, eccentricity, right, the longitudinal axis may not be matching, right? There may be an eccentricity, in which case obviously those places shall be subjected to those eccentric movements, right? That is what the meaning of this codal specification, right? The resulting stresses considered eccentricity shall be provided for, means you design for those bending moments also, right? And next one is, if the column flange is subjected to significant tension, or if any phases are not prepared for bearing, if full continuity is required with slip, only HSFG bolts must be used. This is important, student, right? This is how the splices are provided on flanges. They are what called the flange splices, which will carry the axial force as well as the bending moment, whereas here a splice is provided on the web. This is what called a web splice, which will carry the shear force. This will be designed for shear force, whereas this splice plate will be designed for axial force as well as the bending moment. Now even we can see that a base plate or a bearing plate is also provided, which will, the main purpose of that base plate is to transmit the loads uniformly over the cross section below. That is the main purpose, and which are connected by means of either rivets or bolts or welds as appropriate, right? Now once we examine these codal specification at a quicker pace, now let us see the numeric problem, student. I'll quickly move to the numeric problem, right? Therefore, as per this codal specification, just now we have examined, even the same are also specified in class 7.3.4 page number 46. I'll not go to that, you may just revisit it, right? Now let us see a numeric problem. First numeric problem, right? This is the problem wherein it is subjected, this is a splice for columns of same cross section subjected to axial forces, right? Design of the splice plate or column splices, right? Now the problem is like this: a column ISHB 300 at the rate of 576.8 Newton per meter is to support a factored axial load of 900 kilonewton, and it is to be spliced at a height of 2.5 meter, right? Design the splice plate and connections using 4.6 grade bolts and use steel of Fe 410 grade steel, right? Therefore, that is all the data given, and also use 4.6 grade bolts. Use 4.6 grade bolts. And so, now let us see what is the given data, student, right? Now the given data is like this: for Fe 410 grade steel, we know that Fe is equal to 410 Newton per mm square MPa, and Fi is equal to 250 Newton per mm square. And as well as if I go to this IS 800 2007 table 1 page number 30, for 4.6 grade bolts, FUB is equal to 400. Let me revisit that. Let me go to this page number 13, student, right, at a quicker pace. Page number 13. Yes, right. Therefore, it gives the tensile properties of the structural steel products. Therefore, 4.6. It is having 400 MPa. Therefore, I just noted down that, and even the other given data is like this: that from table 5, page number 30. Let me go to that table 5, student, page number 30 at a quicker pace. Page number 30, right? This is the page number 30. I do have the partial safety factors for the material, right? Whereas just now we have seen that the partial safety factor governed by the yielding gamma m naught is equal to 1.1, as well as the partial safety factor, if it all is governed by the ultimate stress, gamma m1 is equal to 1.25 for the steel. Whereas for the bolts, that to friction, the bearing bolts, right? Gamma MB. Then for shop fabrications which are done at the workshop, then partial safety factor gamma MB is equal to 1.25. Right? These are the different partial safety factors from this page 30, table 1. And also Now, diameter of the bolt is not given, therefore I am assuming the diameter of the bolt as 16 mm, ordinary black bolt. Therefore, if I go to this table 73, if I go to this, let me go to this table 73, student, right? Therefore, this 73. Yes, and then in that connections, right? From that table 73 for 60 mm diameter, right? 16 to 22, the diameter of the standard clearance hole should be 2 mm extra, 2 mm extra. Therefore, now the diameter of the hole will now work out 16 plus 2 is equal to 18 mm. 18 mm. That is what I have just written here. And also the factored load Pu is equal to 900 kilonewton. And even if I go to this IS 1369 part 2 table 6 page number 9, let me revisit that, right? Yes, here I do have for M16 grade bolts, the net area is equal to 157 mm square. If you don't know this, even you can find out the net area as approximately is equal to 0.78 multiplied by pi by 4 d square, or 0.78 multiplied by 201, it works out say 157 mm square, right? These are the entire given data. Even I have assumed some additional data also, from which I have just noted down the relevant codal provisions, right? Now, first I'll design the splice plate, right? Now, assuming, right, let me show this splice plate, right? This splice plate I am designing first to start with, right? Or let me go to this figure. Right? Yes, this design I am doing, right? This splice plate, right? This splice plate I am designing. There is no shear plate here. Right? Therefore, this design I am carrying on, right? Doing, right? Therefore, assuming the ends of the column are machined for complete bearing, right? And the column ends are flush. Flush means they are perfectly in contact one with the other, right? There is no gap. Between the two. That is what the meaning of the flush means. In such a case, there is a perfect bearing, means the load is transferred by virtue of the bearing. Contact. Bearing means nothing but it is a perfect contact, right? There is no gap between these two. Hence, in which case now 50% of the load is transferred directly, and 50% is by the splices and their connections. Therefore, the load transferred by each of the splice plate and their connections is equal to this 900 by 2 is the load transferred by the two splices on either side. However, that divided by 2, because by perfect bearing 900 by 2 is being resisted 450. Therefore, by each of the splice plate, that divided by 2 means 225 kilonewton is the load on the splices as well as their connections. However, if I go to this IS 800 2007 from table 46 of page number 138 right? Let me revisit that for ISHB 300 for this column section. Let me revisit this page number 138, students. One moment, right? 138, right? 138. Yes. Now I am there in that page number 138. Just bear for me, right? 138. Yes, and then page number 138, wherein I need to refer the section ISHB 300 at 576. ISHB 300. Therefore, this is at ISHB 300 at a rate of 576. Therefore, for which I do have the relevant properties, right? From this Annex H of IS 800 2007, right? Or even the plastic properties are also available, or you may go through the steel table also, right? I'm just noting down all the relevant properties. What is the width of the depth of the section is equal to 300, and width of the flange is equal to 250, and thickness of the flange is equal to 10.6, and the thickness of the web is equal to 7.6, and so on and so forth, right? Therefore, I just noted down that relevant data from the steel tables. Right, these are the relevant properties. Therefore, area is equal to 7485 mm square, and depth h is equal to 300, and breadth of the flange is equal to 250, and thickness of the flange is equal to 10.6. This is the data I have just noted down. Therefore, if I go to this figure, or even if I revisit this figure, right, or like this, right, Therefore, now what I am able to see is that this width of this flange, the width of this splice should be numerically equal to this width of this width of this flange, or let me show this, right, like this, right. Therefore, this width of this splice should be numerically equal to the width of this uh, width of this flange. Therefore, now I am fixing that. Therefore, width of the splice plate is equal to width of the flange is equal to BF is equal to 250. One property I have fixed, right. Therefore, the area of the splice plate required, A required is equal to the PU divided by FI. However, PU, each of the splice plate is resisting only 225 kilonewton, 10 to the power 3, that divided by FI. However, these splices should be designed so as to yield, that's it, yield, right. Therefore, that divided by Fy. Maximum stress is the yield stress only, right. That divided by 250. It works out, say, 900 mm square, but already width is already decided. Therefore, the thickness of the splice plate required, T required is equal to A required divided by this width 250. Therefore, 900 divided by 250, it works out, say, 3.6 mm. But however, because if at all they are exposed to open environment, the thickness should not be less than 6 mm, right. Once I decide this thickness also, now I'll go to the design of the bolted connections, right. Design of the bolted connections as per this class 10.3.3, page number 75. Let me just revisit this page number 75, student, of IS 800. Just wait for a moment. 75, right. Yes, and then the connections. Now, what the code says? What the code says here is that I do have the shear capacity of the bolt. The design shear strength of the bolt VDSB is equal to VNSB divided by gamma MB, where VNSB is equal to FU divided by root 3 NN multiplied by A and B. There is one, and also the bearing capacity of the bolt from class 10.3.4 of the same page. Design is equal to VDPB is equal to VNPB divided by gamma MB, where VNPB is equal to 2.5 KB DT FU, right, where KB is the smaller of the four values, E divided by 3 P divided by 3 minus 0.25, FU divided P divided by FU, and last value is equal to 1. Therefore, from that codal specification, you please see this schematic that here at this joint at the the flange is in contact with the splice plate, Therefore, there is only single shear, or there is only one weak plane along which the bolt can shear. This is only one weak plane along which the bolt can shear, right. Therefore, this is what under single shear. Hence, the strength of the bolt in single shear is equal to, now given by this formula, VDSB is equal to A and B multiplied by NN, where NN is equal to 1 multiplied by design shear stress FUB divided by root 3 gamma MB. Substituting the numeric values, now I'll get 1 multiplied by 157 multiplied by 400 divided by root 3 multiplied by 1.25. The denominator, that will be 10 to the power 3. It works out at 29 for 60 mm diameter bolt in single shear, right. And also, just we have seen this from this page 73, class 10.2.2. Let me go to that page number 72, right. Let me revisit, right, page number 73. Just wait for a moment, right. Therefore, there the pitch, right, the minimum spacing of the bolts is given as that shall not be less than 2.5 times the nominal diameter of the bolts, and maximum spacing, this is a compression member, therefore 20 or 200 mm, whichever is less. And even coming to the top, the minimum edge distance, of the bolts, it says that it shall not be less than, as per this class 10.2.4, shall not be less than 1.5 times the bolt diameter in case of rolled or machine flame cut or sawn or planed edges. Generally, we will be using only machine flame cut holes only. Therefore, 1.5. Therefore, using these codal specifications, now I'll find out what is the minimum minimum pitch. Pitch should not be less than 2.5 multiplied by 16, or say 40 mm minimum. However, maximum pitch shall not be more than 12 times T. However, please see that here I do have the thickness. The connection is between a flange plate of 6 mm and the a flange plate of 10.6 mm, as well as I'm assuming I already obtained the thickness of the splice plate as 6 mm. Therefore, out of these two, whichever is minimum will govern the design for the bearing. Therefore, the 6 mm splice plate will fail first. Therefore, now if I take that 12 multiplied by 6, pitch should not be more than 72 or 200 mm, whichever is minimum, therefore 72. However, the pitch should be in between 40 to 72 mm. Hence, let us say, let the pitch P is equal to 20, say 50. That is what my assumption. And the coming to the top, this edge distance should not be less than 1.5 times the diameter of the hole is 18 mm. Therefore, this diameter of the hole is 18 mm. Therefore, now it works out say 27 or say 30 mm. Therefore, even just now we have seen that KB is the least of the four, right? 1 E divided by 3 D naught, which will now work out upon substitution 30 divided by 3 multiplied by 18. It works out say 0.55. The second criteria is that P divided by 3 naught minus 0.25, 50 divided by 3 multiplied by 18 minus 0.25 is equal to 0.676. And the third one is FU divided by FU, say 400 divided by 410, 0.975, or the last value is equal to 1. Out of these four, whichever is minimum is the KB value. Therefore, it is the first criteria, 0.555 is the minimum. Therefore, the design strength of the bolt in bearing VDPB is equal to 2.5 KB DT FU divided by gamma MB. Substituting which the numeric values, now I'll get say 2.5 multiplied by 0.55 multiplied by diameter of the bolt, 16 multiplied by thickness for the bearing is 16 mm multiplied by 400 divided by 1.25, that whole divided by 10 to the power 3. It works out say 42.62. Therefore, the bolt value is the least of these two, 29 kilonewton in bearing in shearing criteria as well as in bearing criteria 42.62. Therefore, 29 will govern the design. Hence, the number of bolts that are required, N RIC is equal to the load transmitted by the splice plates, that divided by bolt value, 225 divided by 29, say 7.76 or say 8 numbers, or say that generally will be providing in 2 rows. Just now already shown in the figure that in 2 rows like this, right? Therefore, that divided by 2 means 4 bolts in each row as shown here in the schematic, right? On either side of the joint, please make a note, student, right? This is the joint, dotted line indicates the joint, right? This is how the joint, right? On either side of the joint, 8 plus 8 joints, 8 bolts, right? That is how in elevation they are seen, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is how 4 plus 4, 8. These are 8, right? These are 8 and these are 8, right? However, we already know that the edge distance is equal to 30 mm, and also these pitches, each of these pitches is equal to 50 mm, and also at this end this edge distance is once again 30 mm, like that. Therefore, if I provide this much, hence the depth of this splice plate required, that is provided, this one, right? This depth of this splice plate provided, this splice plate is equal to, now I'll get this result as there are 6 pitches are there, 3 plus 3, 6 plus 2 plus 2, 4 end distances of 30 mm. Therefore, 6 multiplied by 50 plus 4 multiplied by 30, it works out say 420. 420 is the depth of this splice plate, or this splice plate is equal to 420, and which are hence provide a splice plate of 420 depth and 250 mm width and a thickness of 6 mm, connected by means of 8 M16 bolts in 2 rows as shown in the figure. Now, this is what I'm just showing, right? This is right the schematic, student, right? Schematic. Or let me show another schematic, not this one, right? Like this, right? And just I'm providing, right? Like this. Here I'm showing 16, but it is say 1 in 1 row, another row. Therefore, 4 plus 4, 8, not 18, right? Like this, right? Or like this also, right? Like this in elevation, right? Hence, there is also the first problem, student. I hope you understood the first problem, right? I hope you enjoyed the discussions what we had in today's class, student, right? If you have really enjoyed the discussions, don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, comment, turn on notification to our YouTube channel. We'll meet in the next class with a design of splice faces due to shear, bending and axial forces 3 problem. Till then, bye bye, students.